Cool.
Welcome to the December 5th, 2018 Board of Education meeting. The board has been in executive session since 6 p.m. to discuss a contractual matter and a tenure recommendation. And if we could now stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And if we could have introductions.
Dave Hurst.
Meredith Moriarty.
Chris Meyer.
Jody Monroe.
Michael Cooper.
Holly Dellenbaugh.
Jonathan Fishbein.
Willow Bear.
And Judy Kehoe.
Thank you. First up is approval of the minutes of the November 28th, 2018 regular board meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Do we have anyone here from the Student Senate? Okay. You can come to the microphone.
I'm Talia from Student Senate. I'm the secretary, and this month we're focusing on the holiday food drive and approving new clubs. So we're putting a really big incentive on the holiday food drive. We're going to give a bagel breakfast to the homeroom that does the most boxes. And then for approving clubs, we have interest in creative writing clubs, a sports debate club, and a spike ball club. So we're in the process of approving those. And that's it.
Okay. I forgot to ask, do we have any PIG students here tonight?
I see a couple.
Okay. Your obligation is to stay until 9 p.m. or till the end of the meeting, whichever comes first. If the meeting goes past 9, we'll stop for a few minutes so you can sign out. And if you have any forms that you need signed by a board member, bring those up to us and we'll sign them for you. Okay, Superintendent's report. Ms. Monroe.
Thank you. I'd like to congratulate high school senior Maggie Sue, who's been named as a semifinalist for over 200,000 applications for the 2019 class of the Coca-Cola Scholars Program. She's moving on to phase 2 of the process with the hope of being selected as one of 150 Coca-Cola scholars. And if she wins, she will receive a $20,000 college scholarship. So wow. Congratulations and good luck. Next, I'd like to ask our athletic director, Mr. Len Keys, to come up, as we have several of our fall athletes who had some stellar performances this past fall, and we'd like to recognize them.
Thank you, Ms. Monroe. This was another outstanding fall athletic season for Bethlehem. Just an incredible, dedicated group of student athletes and coaches that we're really blessed in our community to have. So with that, I'd like to start our cavalcade of honorees. First and foremost, and we know this is not new for our school district or our interscholastic athletic program, but really student athlete in our district is not a punchline. And once again, our students had excellence, most importantly in the classroom, to go along with the competitive field. So every single one of our fall teams achieved scholar athlete status from the New York State Public High School Athletic Association. So I'd like to just give a round of applause to all of our athletes and all of our coaches. Boys soccer, girls soccer, field hockey, girls tennis, boys cross country, football, girls volleyball, boys volleyball, and of course our girls swim and dive and golf. So good, really good stuff. So I'd like to bring the first pair. This is a pair, as you see, they're doubles players, coached by Scott George. I'd like to welcome Zoe Davis and Letty Donovan. They both qualified for the state championships in doubles. So come on up, ladies. Congratulations, ladies. The next student athlete I'd like for us to welcome is an outstanding young man, outstanding cross-country competitor, Matt Cavallari. Come on up, Matt. Matt is another state qualifier. He has the 4th highest BC finish ever in state championships for us. Congratulations. And very exciting news, Matt just gave a verbal commitment to Binghamton University, where he's going to be continuing his athletics and academic career. So we'll have our letter of intent ceremony for him in the spring. As you can see by all the names, we had 10 state qualifiers from our girls swim and dive team, amongst them section champions. The girls came in 3rd place overall in states, coached by Carrie Ann Santacola, just an outstanding, outstanding season. So at this time, I'd like to call up Anna Bernasconi. Come on up, Anna. Ella Kabak. Maggie Hartman, Maddie Ferreira, Maggie Reynolds, Maya Earlywine, Robin Aranson, Megan Novak, and Audrey Nadeau. Now I have, oh, and of course, Sydney Sorbello. How do I forget Sydney? Did I forget Sydney? I did, and she's not here? Oh, okay. Well, I have a lot of, while they're taking pictures, I'm just going to fill you in on a few items. Sydney was a News Channel 13 Vitra Athlete of the Week. You might have seen Sydney on the news. Fantastic. I also want to mention that we had several section champions. We had the 200 free relay team of Sydney Sorbello, Anna Bernasconi, Audrey Nadeau, and Maggie Hartman. So they were section champs there. And Sydney also won the section championship in the 200 IM and the 100 free. So congratulations to them. Oh, well, look who just swam in. We can have a new updated team picture. You know, and I also want to mention that Audrey received an incredibly special and distinguished award at the New York State Public High School Championships, as she was given the Sportsmanship Award for the entire event. So just an outstanding group of young ladies. Congratulations. And now for our varsity girls soccer team, coached by Tom Rogan. Tom, by the way, was just last week named the AA Conference Coach of the Year, and as we go through, outstanding. Well-deserved, clearly. So in addition to this team being the Section 2 AA champions, the regional champions, state Final Four, the state finalists, obviously a scholar athlete team. I have to tell you, I had the privilege of spending a tremendous amount of time this fall, especially in a very cold Cortland that weekend, and some pretty good Italian food, with this group of young ladies and this coaching staff. Being around a group of student athletes like that for a period of time, especially when they're away from home, representing our district and our community in the way in which they did, that's why I do what I do. And I just want to, and I thanked Coach Rogan. We just had his end of the season meeting a little while ago, and I expressed my appreciation. But I just wanted, from my heartfelt thanks to you ladies for really representing our district and our community in such a great way. So I'm going to give you a round of applause. So with that, let's call them up. Come on up, Maya Dawson. Not here. That's a bad start. Shannon Donnelly. Sophie Glassman. Piper Gregory. Grace Hoteling. Grace was the Section 2 and the Suburban Council Player of the Year. She was just named All-American just the other day. She led the section in goals. She was a first team, of course, All-Star and Times Union All-Star. Just an outstanding career. Oh, and by the way, I just found out you were also All-State, so congratulations. Come on up, Katie Hoteling. What are you giggling about? Congratulations, Ruth Hoteling. Come on up. We have a lot of Hotelings. Ellie Hussar. Claire Hutton. For those of you maybe who haven't heard of Claire Hutton, she is a 7th grader, second in our team in assists, goals. She was also a first team All-Star and also All-State this year. So congratulations. Beatrice Jones, second team All-Star. Marissa Mestraco, honorable mention All-Star. Reagan Meek. Brianna Price, honorable mention All-Star, and one of our captains. Fiona Ryan. Katie Sellers. Emma Sinek. Sydney Smith, another one of our captains, a first team All-Star and also All-State. Joanna Van Royen, second team All-Star. And Jordan Van Amberg. Congratulations, girls. Awesome job. Awesome season.
Thank you, Mr. Keys. I know you're going to the hockey game, yeah. So, and congratulations to all of our fall athletes. As Mr. Keys said, really, you're a great representation of the district. So thank you and congratulations. That's my report.
There goes our crowd.
Yep, bye-bye. I don't know why they don't want to stay.
They don't know what fun is.
We're fun people. Come on.
Okay, next we'll move on to the Board of Education report. The board met this morning with Assemblyperson Fahey and Senator Breslin. We had a discussion about the upcoming budget and various education issues around the state. I thought it was a very productive discussion, and I'm glad a large number of board members were able to join us this morning. And I will send them both a note tomorrow to thank them. The board received this week an email that sophomore Stacy Lee won the Albany County American Legion Oratorial Contest. And also competing was, and I'm going to destroy this name, I know, Zhang Wan, also known as Sunny Sun. So we want to congratulate both of them for competing and to Stacy for her win. And the last thing I wanted to mention is one of the policies we have on the docket for tonight is policy 1225, relationship with local education foundation. And as part of that, we're asked to have a board liaison with the Bethlehem Central Community Foundation. I would be willing to serve in that role unless somebody else is clamoring to do it.
No clamoring. We're good. I
Okay,
will not clamor.
okay. And that's all I had. Anybody else?
I attended the Glenmont Craft Fair, which I've done every year now for a long time. And once again, it was well put together, wonderful things to buy for the holiday. If you didn't go this year, go next year. It's like one-stop shopping, and it's a good benefit for the school.
I wasn't at the Hammer Craft Fair, but I understand from my wife it was excellent, once again.
And when you see your credit card bill, you'll know how excellent.
I've already seen it. Chris?
Sure. I thought the meeting this morning was excellent with our local representatives. In addition, went to the varsity basketball game last night. It's exciting. We seem to have a very good team this year. We played rather well, so it's very exciting. And then the last piece, I did actually get to go to the Hammergrail Craft Fair on Saturday. It was the 35th one, and so I did a little math in my head. It would mean that we were probably, or you and I, were probably at the first or second one, so that's a little scary. Yeah, darn math. But the one thing about that is just, these are some of these PTA events, and it's just incredible what parents do in our community and how much time and effort they put into all of these events. And, you know, I'm just continually amazed because these things just don't fall into place. They work because there are parents in this community who spend hours and hours and hours on them, and they just make this town and our school district a better place.
Anyone else? Okay. Okay, our first presentation this evening is on the Health and Physical Education Program, and it will be presented by Athletic Supervisor Fred Powers.
Health education. I can come back into physical education if you'd like. And I'm joined tonight by Matt Bixby, Holly Kaiser, and Candy Rademan, who are our health staff, so I think they want to stay over there. Where's my... So our health education program, really we're looking to provide the health and skills and knowledge for our students to be health literate. And in grades K through 5, it's taught by classroom teachers, approximately 16 to 20 lessons using the Health Smart curriculum. In grade 8, we're on an A-B schedule, and that's for a full year. That's taught by Mr. Bixby and Ms. Kaiser. And at the high school, it's a semester course taught by Ms. Rademan and Ms. Kaiser. And those are students typically in 10 through 12. We try to really get our 10th graders enrolled as much as we can. That's where we see the youth risks tend to peak, so we try to get them before the horses out of the barn with our 10th graders. So the overarching piece of our, we look to have standards-based, it's skill-driven, scientific, research-based, learning-centered, strength-based, and authentic. And as we go through, you should see some of these attributes come through. So standard 1 is our health and personal health and fitness. The 3 standards I'm about to go over are the same for physical education, for health education, and family and consumer science education. It's really the subcategories and the functional knowledge and the skills that are different, and I'll get to those in a moment. Standard 2 is a safe and healthy environment. Standards 3 is resource management. So along with what we've had in there over the last 4 years, the state has added a number of areas. You can see CPR hands-only was added in 2015, tick and tick-borne disease in 2015 as well, heroin and opioid awareness in 2016, and just recently the mental health education. some of that, at the high school, we've always done CPR. We've done that for 30-plus years. We've added the hands-only at the middle school level, so we do that in physical education. The tick and tick-borne disease, we actually do within physical education. We're outside quite a bit, so we talk about checking for ticks and what to look for, and we started actually dragging some of the areas to see where the ticks tend to locate, so we do monitor that as well. The heroin and opioid awareness and the mental health, those are things that we've actually been doing for quite some time. And on the following slides, you'll see when we talk about skills and functional knowledge, the increase, the things we've added really have been in the functional knowledge piece, not so much the skills. So when I talk about skills and functional knowledge, a number of years ago, the state was saying that students were very, very good in functional knowledge. They knew the stuff, but the behaviors didn't change. So the curriculums were rewritten to really take a skills-based approach. So we look at self-management, relationship management, stress management, decision-making, communication, planning and goal setting, and advocacy are the 7 skills that we teach. Self-management and relationship management are really the 2 main skills with the sub-skills built in. So what we will do is take the functional knowledge, physical activity, nutrition, HIV/AIDS, sexual risk, tobacco, et cetera, and we infuse those into the skills. So if we look at the skill of decision-making, so those are the attributes of decision-making, how to identify personal health decisions, locate and use information sources to enhance health. We take that and we use the functional knowledge of alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs, and we use that functional information in those skills. If that makes sense, and I have questions, actually, my staff who actually teach it can go in depth if you'd like. So when we talk about, mental health education, we address self-care in the skills of self-management, planning and goal setting, stress management, resiliency and decision-making, stress management, planning and goal setting, feelings and communication and stress management, communication skills, and the skills of communication, decision-making, stress management, empathy, compassion, and acceptance, gratitude and forgiveness. So you can see we embed it really across many of the skills that we teach. In self-management and relationship management and communication, and a question had come up regarding consent. This is really where we talk about that piece. So in the relationship management and communication, it's the functional knowledge of violence prevention and family life sexual health, going from elementary up. It would be good touch, bad touch, respecting personal space, verbal and nonverbal communication, resisting peer pressure, assertive communication refusal skills, and respect and healthy relationships. Within our instruction, we also have other events at the high school. Up until this year, we've been bringing Hope House. They're not bringing students in. Currently, there's another group that we're now working with. These students come from their sentence to Hope House. They're the same age as our students. They'll come in and talk regarding our experiences, and the students can look at the skills or lack of skills that these students had that led them down that particular path. I've sat in on a number of presentations from the students from Hope House, and it's incredibly powerful listening to them, but seeing our students look at people at their own age and the path that they'd taken and where they had ended up. At the middle school, starting last year with the Choices program put on by the Albany County Sheriff's Department, we go out to Altamont, and they have a half day down there in terms of alcohol and drug awareness. At the high school, we have brought in the mindfulness room presentation so students understand where they can go when they're feeling stressed. The SAG clip down the middle school, and then with our community presentations with the BOU, Holly and I are both on the BOU board. We've had members of our health department as members of BOU for, actually since I got here 28 years ago. So we've always had an affiliation with BOU. And tomorrow night with our Talking With Your Team program, we're actually doing a program on vaping and marijuana. So that'll be, if anyone has a free night, that'll be tomorrow night at 6:30 in the cafeteria. I did want to go over some of the data that we use. Every 2 years, we'll do the Youth Risk Behavior Survey in 8th grade, and then in the high school, we normally do it in the health education classes. Last year, we did it in physical education to try to get a different sample or a larger sample population. We use that in our instruction. Students do look at the data. They'll look at target areas when they're doing health advocacy. So we want them to take a look at what students are doing, but really stressing the positive and how many students are not doing things. So on vaping, the CDC does the Youth Risk Behavior Survey. They just added the question regarding vaping this past year. You can see that 34.9% of our students have tried vaping at least once. The national average is at 41%. Percentage of students who have ever tried cigarette smoking, our students are really good. They don't, 11%, and you can see the trend for our students is really down to just 11% that actually have tried smoking, so that's once in their lifetime. In terms of the national average, we're quite below that. I think there is a question on the Youth Risk Behavior Survey that asks how many times a month in the past 30 days have you smoked, and I think the high school is at 1.9, so we really don't have regular users. The concern to us is looking at the vaping piece, where we've got 34% of students who have tried vaping, yet we do not have many students that smoke cigarettes. And the vaping piece is a concern, and that's something that we're addressing here and why BOU is doing our program tomorrow night. Percentage of students who feel sad or hopeless every day for almost 2 weeks, and that was in the past year. That trend is actually going up. That's at 29% of our respondents had answered positive to that. And while we're still below the national average, that's still a concern. In terms of students who have ever drank alcohol at least once, you can see our trend is actually very good. It's going down. So 53.6% that have tried alcohol at least once in their lifetime. From the national average, marijuana use and alcohol use, we, for a number of years, had actually been above the national average. And a couple of years ago, we were able to dip below that and stay below that. And that we felt actually very good about that trend. You can see that in terms of marijuana, our use has gone down precipitatively. We're down to 25.5% who have used marijuana at least once in their life. And again, from the national trends, 2001 wasn't not a good year. But we've gone down quite a bit now under the national average with, for those students who have smoked marijuana at least once. And we didn't actually have a slide that said the end, but that is the end of our presentation. So if you have questions of myself or of Mr. Bixby, Ms. Kaiser, or Ms. Rademan, we'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
Do you have any explanation as to why we, on the last slide and, let's see, the one about alcohol and the one about marijuana, where there are, it seems like every other year on the last slide, for the last couple of years, starting, looks like 2005, where we, 41.6, we go up a bit, down, and then up. And it's, is there a difference in the programs that year? Is there a difference in student population? What's going on in the nation? I mean, do you have any idea why we're moving up and down?
I think going from 41.6 to 42, I don't think I could explain that per se. The students, you know, I know we've talked to the health teachers on some years, and like some populations, like this is kind of a tough year, and we have students that might be a little bit more socially advanced. I don't know if there's anything that was going on in 2014 that really made that bump. The 2018, and again, if I know Dave has a math background, if he was to dissect our data, I'm not sure how much water it would hold. We look at it in terms of the trends and what students report. The 2018 was a sampling of the whole high school. The ones prior were from health class, so the sample population was a little different, but I don't know if you guys think, and back to 2014, if there was something that was different, or?
No, I think it's just influence from the peers, possibly, the population of the school has changed. Wonderful students that we have. So I think that's totally what we talked about. That's one way of what was going on in 2014. Trying to remember what I did yesterday, but yeah.
And some of the questions we'll ask in the 30 days prior to the survey, it'll ask that question. We usually do the survey around the same time of the year, so we're pretty consistent with when we give the survey. So there's not, sometimes we'll look at that and say, okay, when are we giving it? Are there some events that are going on that would, that students might be engaging in and risky behaviors around that time? But we've been pretty consistent about the same time of year, so it for year to year would be pretty much the same things going on.
I also noticed that there's from 2014 to 2016, the rate of alcohol consumption percentage is approximately flat lines, yet in that same period, the usage of marijuana seems to plummet. But no explanation, just good luck.
No, other than it's going in the right direction, and I couldn't tell you that. We could say there's a variable in there, that a program that the school came in and put in that had, excuse me, that had that. I look at what we do as part of the overall program. Our schools do a lot of things outside of health education in terms of addressing a lot of these areas, as does the community. So I can't say that we instituted one particular thing in 2014 and that program made that dent in it. I mean, that's something that we can actually kind of look at and talk in our department meetings. But.
And again, you're asking questions I can only kind of guess and an answer for, but I can tell you, at least with marijuana during that time, I mean, we are also talking about the time when legalization started becoming much more of an issue, and it started becoming much more talked about in the media. So I know, at least from our perspective, we started talking about it more in class as well. So I have no idea if there's any correlation there with some of the public knowledge that started coming out now. So that's the best guess I could maybe offer.
Well, if that worked for marijuana, maybe we could talk a little bit more about alcohol.
I mean, we do cover up the facts that alcohol and marijuana both have on the brain and on every cell in the body, and we go over that. I think a lot of some of it has to do with the influences that we saw during the public students as well as what they're taking. And like we started that, it is definitely going down, and I'm hopeful that we can slide down. Cover alcohol.
And it is a concern with the states that are legalizing marijuana. Again, another reason we're having the presentation tomorrow night. It is not a safe substance, and the presentation tomorrow night really is focusing on adolescence and the impact of the adolescent brain. So we're hoping to give parents a little bit more ammo when they have discussion with their children in terms of your brain really doesn't start developing or finish developing until you're 25. So your reasoning skills and logic are already lagging behind your pleasure-seeking drive. and then to add marijuana to that and the impact that it does have on the brain is not good. So when we look at these trends over the next couple of years, we're curious to see what happens here, but also in states that have already legalized marijuana, to see if there's a difference in Colorado or in Massachusetts or some of the other states that have done that.
Do any of the programs that you have in place help students identify addictive behaviors? So, because some people do have addictive personalities that they will get addicted to gaming or sitting at the computer for hours, surfing, and just not being able to pull themselves away from it, or other things like alcohol, marijuana, things like that, and identifying that you do have programs that help identify those behaviors.
In the high school, we talk about youth abuse and addiction, and there's a difference between the three. So,
Okay.
absolutely. And it's not just addiction to substances, it's addiction to playing video games and, being a 30-year-old selling in your parents' basement. We talk about all of the different types of addictions that are out there. I mean, people get addicted to writing, and there's all those addictions. So, yeah.
Yes, they do. Thank you.
Could I ask a couple questions about the slide you had regarding the consent and bodily autonomy? Yeah, that one.
Yep.
I notice you have on there assertive communication and refusal skills, but I don't see any information about what you're teaching about requesting consent and respecting the answer. So I'm wondering, where does that fit in here? Because communication shouldn't have to be assertive. It just should be respected and certainly requested. So where are we at with that?
Actually, we were just talking earlier in terms of we don't do a piece specifically with the terms consent. And actually, I'm going to have Philip Candy and Holly talk, because Holly was just at our state conference, and actually that came up in some of the presentations, specifically using the term consent. So I'm going to have Holly and Candy talk about that.
Could you come up to the microphone so that we can hear it on the videotape? Thank you.
Yeah, consent was a topic that came up at the conference amongst health educators, and basically stating that for a long time, consent has been this word that we use and say, like, is there consent or not consent? And it's not just as simple as that, and that's why teaching these other skills, how do we resist the refusal skills, the assertive communication skills, that's a really important piece, and just understanding that consent itself is not as clear as yes or no. It's a matter of how do you deal with that, and how do you use these skills that we teach and take them out to provide consent or not consent. So it's not just as simple as like yes or no, and consent is this really cool thing that yes, we were able to give consent. And there's so many things, I think, that with the decision-making piece that comes into play too, like that's going on. That's why we talk about relationships. What is healthy? What is not healthy? What does that look like? And so it really ties back into the communication. It really ties back into the relationship building piece for consent.
I'm seeing all of the responsibility being put on the person who's trying to refuse, as opposed to, I don't see any information about making sure people are requesting consent. So I want to make sure that that is part of what we're talking about. It's not being put solely on the person who has to refuse. So I want to make sure that that is something that we are emphasizing, that one must request the consent and also respect the answer.
We do talk about healthy boundaries in relationships. When Holly was talking about communication, that's part of it, but we can certainly look at how we put those particular terms in.
Okay. I'd also love to see it tied into our school policy about sexual assault, to make sure students understand that we are holding them to specific behavior and that there are consequences to that. And I hope that you go over our school's policy about such things to make sure that our students understand what they're going to be held accountable to.
Following up on, sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I keep trying to ask a question. On Meredith's question and point, I was wondering when in the curriculum we're having these discussions, like, are the same topics being covered in 8th grade and in high school, or are some of these topics just being reserved for high school students and are not being covered?
No, they overlap. When we look at starting right down in kindergarten regarding good touch, bad touch, respecting boundaries, respecting personal space, the verbal, non-verbal communication, those start right down in the Health Smart curriculum and move right up into the grade 8. So these are overlap, they're repeated at various grade levels.
The human sexuality unit at the high school is 3 weeks long. I donate quite a bit of time to this to make sure that they all understand how to keep themselves healthy and how to keep themselves safe, whether you're on the receiving end or on the end of requesting. So, I mean, we certainly don't want to see any young man or young woman end up in jail because they're doing something that they did not get consent for, as well as being on the other side. So I think we do many of the kids that are here, they're shaking their head. We're in my class. We do a fairly thorough job at the high school to make sure that they all understand what the boundaries are supposed to be and how to make sure that they don't end up on the wrong side of the law.
And how do we teach that in 8th grade? Because there's a big jump between 8th grade and 10th grade, but the students are still going to be held accountable for their actions. So what do we say in 8th grade about sexual assault, about boundaries, about consent?
So for 8th grade, just to kind of repeat what Mr. Power said. So these skills are taught at every single level that we go over. So specifically, if you look at that list, the ones that we have done so far this year in 8th grade, we've done verbal, nonverbal communication, we've done resisting peer pressure, we've done assertive communication, refusal skills, respecting healthy relationships. So that's actually what we start the year with, okay, is talking about the communication skills, how do you build healthy relationships with people, how do you maintain a healthy relationship, if something in your relationship isn't healthy, how do you fix it, how do you change it, how do you try to maintain it, all that. So that's kind of our foundational piece for 8th grade, and then those are skills that we revisit throughout the year. So, you know, as we're getting into, say, it be group projects or into the spring when we start talking about violence prevention and stress management, we kind of revisit all of those topics to kind of now start tying it all together for the end.
In 8th grade, do you talk specifically about sexual assault and sexual harassment? Or is it, because you can cover these topics without mentioning those?
When we do violence prevention, so in terms of what those things are and how they interact either to stress or how they interact with healthy relationships, we talk about those things so they have an understanding of what it means and what is harassment versus assault. You know, what's the difference between the two.
And once again, I would just appreciate if our policies are explained to students in 8th grade as well.
Okay.
Because they will be held to those standards, and I want to make sure everyone is educated about what the consequences are.
Yeah, and actually, I know because I used to teach at the high school, so I know when I did, we actually did include, like when we talked about legal consequences, and they had to research the legal consequences of decision-making and things like that, we always included the school policy as part of those as well.
Anything else on this topic?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you want to go and I'll go?
Okay. Well, I just wanted to ask a question about the tick-borne component. Has the curriculum been updated to include the new tick-borne diseases that are out there? We almost lost a relative about a month ago to anaplasmosis, so, and most people aren't aware that you can get 4 or 5 other diseases
Right.
from ticks.
The specific diseases that we have not, I'll go over that with the physical education staff, that we include those in.
Did you want to go, Willa? I'll go after you.
Okay.
What was my question? The mental health requirements that came down over the summer, I'm wondering whether we added any specific curriculum or whether I heard you say that we had already been meeting the standard all along. If you could just talk a little bit more about how we're complying with that.
Is it before this, right? The slide?
It is the one.
Again, I can talk from the high school because it's where I teach. So we've been covering, I've been here for 21 years, and we've been talking mental health for a very long time, but we are definitely putting more emphasis in managing anxiety and stress than ever before. Having the kids do stress plans, making them aware of ways to cope with their various stresses. So as far as adding something new, I took it back and let's start down at the very bottom, because if they're not dealing with their stress now, it's just going to escalate and they're going to have more problems. So we're really focusing mainly on coping skills and dealing with their stress levels.
And is that part of something that every student is required?
In my class,
To
every
take.
student. Yeah.
But is every student required to take your class, I guess is my question.
Well, it's either myself or Holly's.
Okay, one or the other.
Yes, they're all required. They're 10th, 11th, and 12th graders mixed in, which makes it interesting. It's helpful. So, yes.
I feel like I'm sort of a bit of a broken record. The mental health piece is sort of always on my mind. I think we're such an overachieving district, but that, I think, goes along with being such a high-achieving district.
It actually does. The slide, when we look at the results of the slide, and we look at the population that answered the 29%, more than half are students that received A's or B's. So these are really high-achieving students, and more females than males answered in terms of this question. So we're not immune to depression or this. I think that is part of it.
Yeah, that number is alarming.
Yeah, very alarming. I agree.
Yeah, so the second part of my question was, I know we have the mindfulness room that I actually, to be honest with you, only learned about today for the first time, but when we were in the city recently at a conference, I spent a period of time in a mindfulness conference and talked to a lot of other people from other districts about what they're doing to incorporate sort of the concepts of mindfulness into their curriculum. And what stuck with me was sort of the basic concept of mindfulness, which is that, what I took away from it anyway, that 99% of things we worry about are things that have already happened or things that haven't happened yet, but you don't spend time worrying about things that are happening in this moment, which was just sort of such a basic concept that really resonated with me. And so the presentation really focused on ways to bring those concepts into the classrooms. And I don't know whether we've thought about that, whether there's mindfulness, other places in the curriculum, or what we use the room for. I don't know if someone can talk about that.
So, I know actually Ms. Kaiser and I were just talking about this. I think it was yesterday, actually, we were discussing this. And I know at least at the middle school, I mean, this is outside of what we do, but they do mindful minutes in the morning on the announcements, as the students are coming into homeroom. But then we were discussing what are ways that we could think about as this year goes on. How can we start incorporating things on a more daily or, kind of in the moment type things? Because when you talk about a lot of these skills that New York State wants for the mental health stuff that they want us to put in, like we cover a lot of these skills, already. All right, well, actually we cover all of these skills already. So we were kind of talking about what are things, what are things that we could just have in our room that kids can come to use as a resource and use like in the middle school during a home-based period or in the morning before homeroom, like if they're feeling a little amped up or they're feeling a little stressed, like just come in a way and like have a way to sit there for 15 minutes and relieve your stress somehow. So we actually have started brainstorming how can we start incorporating that on a more immediate need as opposed to some of these things, which might be considered more like long-term type stuff, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Also, the K-8 social emotional curriculum that the guidance counselors do in the classrooms include mindfulness. In fact, last year I observed one of the counselors, actually it was a middle school class, doing a mindfulness lesson. So that the guidance counselors do have that built into their curriculum where they're pushing into classes.
Thank you.
All right, a few questions. First of all, the slide about feeling sad. Can you just pull that up real quick? It's interesting because, like, as soon as I saw that, like, I went, oh, wow, that's just about the time social media started to become popular. And so, like, what are we telling, I don't even have to ask, are you guys doing that? But, like, what things are we telling kids in terms of, like, relationships with social media and how it's, I think a lot of what we're seeing is, reflected right in that chart.
Actually, it is. That's where it started. I think it was right around with the iPhone came out, and there is a direct correlation to that.
I mean, it's constantly, because there certainly is some bullying going on, I'm certain of it. How to deal with that? Basically, you block the person, you turn it off, you put it away. I mean, those are, I often do once a week. I have my students have to keep this kind of a journal on their Chromebooks of something that brought them joy in the last 24 hours, because I want them to realize that there are good things in their lives, and we might overlook it, even if it was a nice slice of pizza that they had the night before. Instead of always looking at, my hair's not perfect, my shoes untied, or whatever it is I'm looking at. So, but yes, social media has definitely had a play in how they are perceiving themselves.
Yeah, because they see everyone's best day on the picture when they're living their average day, and yeah. The other question I had, I'm not sure if it's for you or for Jody or for whoever, but when it comes to like vaping and like Juuls and stuff like that, are we educating the faculty and staff as well? Just because, like, if I saw a beer bottle, I would know it's alcohol. If I saw a cigarette, I'd know what it was. But if I saw a Juul, I didn't even know what it was until last year, until we had a presentation on it. That's a flash drive. No, that's a Juul. And so, like, is the faculty being made aware of, because kids may have a Juul in their hand and they would never even know. So, like, I don't even know who that's for.
Yeah, the
faculty meetings.
Yeah.
Dave Dumel has done that in faculty meetings, and one of the things that I wanted to say is I wanted to thank the staff of all the curriculum here. Health education is probably one of the most challenging. It is an ever-changing.
Yeah.
It used to be really easy to see that's a bomb or that's a pipe. Now when you're not sure whether it's a USB charger or a vape, it's difficult. And then take the other subject matter that we deal with, that it's hard for parents to have conversations with their children, and yet our staff does that in mass. It is impressive. So I know that going back to the vaping piece, Dave Dumel has done that in our faculty meetings. That actually was one of the reasons we're doing the presentation tomorrow night as part of BOU. Actually, I'm taking the confiscated devices here into there. Ken Beck, as one of the resource officers, will be there having a table. So one of our goals was to help educate parents as to this is what it looks like, this is what you should look for, and this is the information that you can have that conversation with your child as to why it isn't good. It's not a harmless vapor.
And even there's still ignorance with our students when it comes to vaping. They honestly do not realize that this is an addictive substance. They don't necessarily understand that it's a nicotine delivery system. And they think that that's a better thing than smoking cigarettes, and they're not understanding that. So we're trying to break through, but there's some resistance there.
Will there be any materials from the presentation tomorrow night made available afterwards for people who cannot attend?
Like last year's presentation we did on depression, we Facebook Live it, and then it's on the BOU website. So the whole presentation will be on the BOU website.
Okay, great. Thanks.
A couple other things. this is a tricky question, but when it comes to health education, sometimes parents aren't always comfortable with what's being taught.
Right.
Do you feel that you're able to teach what you need to teach without the fear of there being parent blowback?
Yes.
I've been here 28 years, and I would have to say that we do get some questions. They'll come in, they'll take a look at the curriculum and in what we have. Parents here in the community, and I think you actually may have said it at the very beginning, this is a terrific community. There are parents that are concerned, we're all concerned about the same thing. That's educating our children here and having them health and safety, health and happy. So we really, I mean, from my perspective, I think we've always had support from the superintendent, assistant superintendent, and the Board of Education. No one has ever come in and said you can't teach this or teach that. And if you go back to our original slides, we really take a science-based approach. It's not our opinions, and we present the facts. So we've actually had very good support, and we've always felt that the board has been very supportive, as well as the administration and parents.
As a high school teacher, I look at myself as trying to get my students ready for college, because what is it, like 99% of these kids go away to college when they graduate from Bethlehem, and they no longer have their parental supervision, and they need to be aware of what's going on out there.
Yeah.
And having raised 3 children who all went to college, I feel like I can help them. So.
Yeah. Just the last thing, I'm a teacher. I teach social studies, and I want to think that me teaching the kids about the results of the French and Indian War is going to change their lives. Shockingly, it hasn't yet. But just in my opinion, just what you guys do does. Like, it really does. Like, I want to pretend that all parents are talking to their kids about this. Some are, but some aren't. And like, what you guys are doing is literally changing lives, because you might be the only person that ever tells them, if you do this, this will happen, and you could go to jail, die, all sorts of
Horrible
things.
stuff.
Yeah, no, but seriously, and no one may have ever told them that before. So, what you guys are doing is absolutely vital and life-saving.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
I had one more question, and everyone hates to follow Chris. So I hesitate to even ask another question. And it might not be for you because the presentation is focused on curriculum, but in my professional life, unrelated to the school board, we've been sort of engaged in this growing best practice of having mental health counseling available and more readily accessible by students. And I don't know if that's something that anyone on the panel can speak to, or if we can talk about it another time, or if there's even anything to talk about. But
I mean, obviously, they talk about mental health issues and advocacy and help for students, but in regards to access, I think when you're talking about referring students and families to outside resources, that's done really more through either social workers, school psychologists, or perhaps the guidance counselors. It's really more that role than help.
Yeah, we're a resource. We're not qualified to actually do the counseling.
Yeah, if students come to me and there's things going on in their lives, then I'll refer them to the social worker, or sometimes I'll even call the social worker to, here's, Mr. Bixby, call him out of homeroom kind of thing. But yes, we don't counsel at all.
But I think some of the things we do, Dave Domel last year started with some seniors mentor programs where they'll match up faculty with students, and having that dialogue, while it's not therapeutic, it's a caring adult that's checking in. So the discussions, I would say, sometimes go beyond what the homework is and how things are going. So programs like that, while they're not therapeutic and directed towards that, it's a relationship that's building in the building that connects with students that might be at risk.
And I think I could speak for probably maybe them as well. The topics that we cover in health education, I've found this in various places. Students, we can build that relationship because we are covering these topics that are sensitive in nature and things that maybe they don't hear at home. So sometimes they reach out to us. I found that even last year and in my previous years of teaching, where they come to us for, like, well, Ms. Kaiser, we talked about this, so where can I go for this, or what can I do? And that's the piece, we're not the professionals, but we can guide them and help them But I think the biggest piece I learned last year coming to Bethlehem, I didn't know what the support was going to be, but the community was truly supportive, that other educators, the parents, and keeping those lines of communication open between the psychologists and social workers and us and what's going on in classroom and what's going on. And we try to keep the lines of communication open with parents as well, so that they're aware of what's going on currently in our classroom, and just quick, email or something here and there. So I think that communication amongst everybody helps with everything as well. So.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you for the
Thank
presentation
you.
and for all your great work.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Our next presentation is on the college transition program, and it will be presented by Kathleen Johnston, our Director of Special Education and Student Services.
Okay, thank you very much. We are very excited to talk to you about this program tonight. The College Transition Program is a collaboration between Bethlehem Central and the College of St. Rose. And I want to start by introducing the staff that's working with the program. This is Jen Girardin and Karen Rutnick. You guys want to hop over a little bit? Sure. So I'm going to start by giving you a little bit of history about the program. So the College Transition Program is for our students that are between the ages of 18 and 21 that are still eligible to receive services through the district. And in previous, do I hit? Okay. In previous years, we programmed for those students. They continued to stay after graduation right here in the district. But in the 2011-2012 school year, Karen and I started to reach out to colleges in the area to see if we could start a program like this. And we started with the SUNY Albany, and we did a lot of creative things. We tried to incorporate other school districts so that the colleges would be more receptive, and weren't successful at the beginning. We went and looked at the current programs. North Colony has a program at Siena College, which has been running for quite some time. It's an absolutely beautiful program. And then Albany City has one at Sage College. So Karen and I and some of the CSE chairs continued. We went back to SUNY Albany 3 times over the next 6 years to see if we could convince them that we were the right district and it was the right time, and we got fairly close. Last year we were, keeping our fingers crossed when we had this unbelievable opportunity, which was Capital Region BOCES had run a program at the College of St. Rose for years. And on one given day in May, we found out that BOCES decided to back out. And I think Karen and I were there the next day, like knocking on the door and begging, so our timing was perfect, and we've been able to start the program. So I'm going to have Jen go through the components of the program.
Hi, I'm Jen Girardin. I am the College Transition Program teacher, so I'm not physically located in the high school anymore. So when I show up to work in the morning, I'm over at the College of St. Rose. This is just a little bit of information about the student characteristics and skills that they need to be successful. The students need to have completed 4 years of high school, just like all of the other high schoolers in our building. But coming off the bus the first day of school, our students really need strong safety awareness skills. They need to be able to attend a 75 to 90 minute long college class unsupervised. And these are students that previously would be having a maybe 3-to-1 aid or even 1-to-1 aid in a program like LEAD. So this is a huge leap for them, and to know that they are going to be safe, they're able to communicate with anyone they're able to encounter on campus and advocate for themselves. Our day is very complicated. Coming up with the schedule is probably the hardest part of the job. So for the students in the morning, I'll show you what their day looks like in just a minute, but the students really should be able to follow multiple step directions. So I know I can say, all right, we are leaving this room. You need to get your backpack and maybe your PE clothes, and then get to the next place. So I know that everyone's going to show up at maybe the foyer of the Lally building. And then if they don't show up there, we go back and we get them and we figure out where they got lost on the way. But these are students with really strong skills, and they need to really be engaged and willing to be there too. So I have 3 wonderful students right now, and here's a little bit about what our day looks like. So in the morning, every day, the students arrive at St. Rose, and they come to my office where they drop off their backpacks, they switch out their items, and then we head to our first classroom together. And this is what's on the board when they get there. So their initials would be next to the location that we're going. So you can see a little bit of what our day looks like. The students are auditing a college class of their choice. They are receiving tutoring from the education majors at St. Rose, along with, I've partnered some other students up with other tutors as necessary to help them access their college course curriculum. We do functional reading and math instruction that I lead. Then they also participate in job sites. So they're out in the community in Pine Hills neighborhood with either myself or a program aide, or if they have a job site on campus, they are assisted by either myself or the program aide, and then we have a few job sites where they're more of an intern, so they're partnered up with a St. Rose employee. They eat in the Camelot building or Camelot room, which is the commuter dining hall. They have the option to purchase their lunch, bring their lunch, whatever they'd like to do, it's up to them. Near the end of the day, we wrap up together, so every day they fill out a daily evaluation. What did you learn? What kind of job skills were you working on? How would you rate your performance? And then we also discuss what's coming up the next day. So if we're going to take a walk off campus for a community training day, what do you need with you? Do you need money? Do you need appropriate clothing? Because if you're walking to the library tomorrow, it's going to be 30 degrees outside. You have to have a coat, you have to have shoes. So all of those things we build into their instruction. And so far, the students are doing an amazing job. They're ending their first semester, and they're taking modified versions of final exams, and they're presenting their final projects. One student today was able to stand up with his peers in his college class and present his business project. So he designed a business for the Pine Hills neighborhood and was able to bring his poster and do a full college presentation. So that was a tremendous success for him. And then we have other students who are working and wrapping up their projects as we speak. Our goals for the students are to make them as independent as possible and really to prepare them for life after age 21 when they are no longer here at Bethlehem or on campus with me. Hopefully our students are able to be employed, which is where we work on those job skills with them. And right now we're really working on engaging in socially appropriate friendships and just being around same age peers. So these students are now with people their age. Previously, when they are in the high school, they would be your oldest population in the building, and now they fit right in with everybody else. We are working on getting everyone traveling independently, so being able to go across campus by yourself to your college class. One student hit the ground running. His class was dismissed early the first week of school, and he showed up exactly where he needed to be and was like, my class got let out early. What do I do next? And I was like, oh my gosh, you're here. Like, you made it. So, you know what, it's time for lunch, and you did exactly the right thing. Other students, we've more built in, you know, some baby steps into the program where we would, you know, okay, I'm going to meet you outside your classroom the first week of school. And now, 2 weeks later, I'm going to meet you at the entrance to the building, outside the building, across the street, so on and so on, until they're able to do those things independently. So we didn't just turn everybody loose on the first day of school. We just met everyone's needs where they were and are increasing their independence as we go. We also like I said, we do functional academics. I'll talk more about our community training days and the other opportunities we have on campus in just a minute. But really, we want them to be independent. And there's, you know, some scary moments where you can see that someone showed up 10 minutes later than they were supposed to. So you have to hold them accountable for getting to their college class or meeting you at a certain place and then backtracking sometimes. All right, where did we lose our communication? How can we make this better next time? Our opportunities at St. Rose are really endless. Our program day could run till 9 o'clock at night, and I still would have more events for them to go to. So they're able to access all student activities. They use the fitness center. And I think I talked about all of these other things, but you can see in that picture up there, we got to meet a Buddhist Lama who was making a sand mandala on campus in the Hubbard Interfaith Sanctuary. So getting to just take advantage of all those kind of enriching opportunities is something that myself and Janet, our program aide, really do our best to make sure that they're getting as much as they possibly can out of this program. So even kind of silly stuff, they have a tradition where the St. Rose students on Mischief Night will TP the big tree on campus. They weren't coming to campus at midnight for sure, and I wasn't gonna go either, but the next day we went to take a picture of it and talk about, you know, what was this about? Is it something that the school sponsored? What do you think? And take advantage of all those things. One of our students, there's a dinosaur it's a blow-up dinosaur costume that one of the students just finds so amusing. So if we ever see it, we have to go and take a look at it. But just like seizing those teachable moments, even if it's a bake sale on campus, getting a student to communicate with someone new and practice exchanging money and making appropriate change and then using their social skills. There's so many opportunities like that that make this program really special, and the students really enjoy it. I mean, I hear from their parents very often that they look forward to coming. I have one student who wears her student ID 7 days a week. So hearing stuff like that just makes me so proud of them and all of their hard work. We also get full access to the Pine Hills neighborhood. St. Rose is walking distance to so many things. Every other Friday, we try to do a community training day. So we try to get off campus. During the fall semester, we've stayed within walking distance because I'm still learning how much I can trust them. And during the spring semesters, we're going to start using the CDTA bus for travel training. And I would love to see these students be able to get back to campus for events in the evening, because they could get on the CDTA bus for free and then go to an event and get home. So that's a really lofty goal that I would love to see them work on. We use job sites within campus, and we also have a partnership with, it's a thrift store, it's called The Shop, where the students are sometimes even operating the cash register, pricing items, other job sites that we still need to work on, you know, getting those relationships started and reaching out. There's so many things that we can do, and especially after we get more comfortable using the buses, that would really open up all of Albany to us and beyond that. Within the first week on campus, our students were participating in events. So every Monday, I have them sit down with the student events calendar, and they pick out something that's interesting to them to attend, and they have to go and talk to their parents about it. Even if they can't attend, just the exercise of seeing what's available to you, how can you make a plan to get back to campus, who can you attend an event with, who are your friends, who can you text, and helping develop those friendships and relationships. I couldn't ask for a better job. I just get so excited to go over there every day, and the progress these students have made in the past 3.5 months or so, it's incredible to see. And I think I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who's going to talk about her role in the program.
Okay. Good evening. My name is Karen Rutnick. I'm the transition coordinator for this program, and actually I wear two hats in relation to the program. First, I am the transition coordinator here at the high school Monday through Friday for the past 10 years. 8 of those years, it's been my passion project secretly to, make this program happen. So I have to, tip my hat to Kathy because she's been a wonderful support, and she's managed to keep the fire lit in me all this time until we were able to actually have this, like I said, come to fruition. And so I thank her, and I thank, of course, the board as well for approving this program, because it's really just, it's amazing. I'm actually a Bethlehem alum. I graduated from here many years ago. We won't say when exactly, but, suffice it to say. And this is a full circle moment for me to be able to come back here and to present this program to you folks, so it's super exciting. In terms of what I do, though, obviously there will be a time in the near future when these students will actually leave the program when they're 21, and for 2 of our students that will be next year. So we have to sit with families and discuss what their plans are. And my role is to help them get connected to any adult services that are out in the community, so that once they do eventually leave, they will be connected and on to their next step, whatever that looks like for them, which will probably be different for each one of them at this point in time. So, I work obviously a lot with the families in terms of, having that conversation, with is oftentimes very difficult to have, because the parents are really not ready for the next step, even though their son or daughter is 21, and that we've been kind of talking about it all along and trying to be planful about it. It's still difficult. But we break it down in pieces, and we make a little okay, we're just going to do this month, and then next month we'll make it something else. And so everybody's on board. We talk to all the different, folks that are involved, obviously, Mr. Auden, and everybody gets a piece to it, in terms of helping to plan it and guide, gives their advice and that sort of thing, so that, as I said, when they leave, we've, done our work in terms of saying, okay, we've given you these experiences, now you can go be successful in this next phase of your life, hopefully working, but for some folks it will be a variety of things. So that's my piece. I don't know if you folks have any questions or...
I just want to say how thrilled I am that the program has finally taken off. Kathy and I have touched base over the years on the rather torturous process of getting this off the ground.
I should have said Mike was a helper in one of those contacts. We were close, but we're there now, so different place.
And it's just so important for these students to be able to feel independent within their comfort level and what their families are comfortable with, but also to realize that there's something after high school, because so much energy gets put into just getting them through elementary school, middle school, and then high school, that for many of these students, the families can't even think beyond that. So it's great. The question I had is, are there plans to expand this program?
Absolutely, yeah. I have to say, because it was late May that we got this opportunity, we weren't even sure it was going to happen. You guys were very kind in letting us start with such a small number. And it was great to start with that little number, because we could really get a sense of what it's like. We are scheduled to look and do intakes on 4 other students in the next couple of weeks. So, as we mentioned, it's a 3-year program, so that this year the 3 students will be with, well, 2 of them for 2 more years, this year and next year.
Right.
And then the 3rd student for 3 years. So we're looking at 4 students who will be coming in potentially that will be with us for the 3 years. So each year we'll look at those numbers to try to grow.
Do you feel like you have enough resources to grow the program?
Right now, I think with having 3 students, we're able to very successfully operate our program and meet the students' needs. I think in time, as our program grows, we're going to need definitely more staff over there because I wear so many hats during the day, whether it's actually teaching a class, helping students access their college curriculum, and serving as a job coach. And I am so grateful for Janet, who's serving as our program aide, because she wears just as many hats as I do and is very flexible. And with the opportunities that we have within walking distance, as well as what the bus will allow us to access, I think we're in a really good place. But I think our needs are going to change and grow as the program grows.
There's another opportunity within the college of having a graduate assistant. We didn't have to do that this year because the numbers were so small, but so you'd be buying a service from the college and getting a graduate assistant who's getting their master's in special education, and they could also serve as another teacher, so you would coordinate that as we look at numbers. And that is available to us every year. It just didn't make sense for us to do it this year.
Anyone else?
The only other thing I wanted to tell you is that next week on Tuesday?
Oh, yeah.
The 12th? Wanna share
Sure.
that?
Next Tuesday at 6 p.m. at the College of St. Rose in the Lally Building, we will be having our end of semester wrap-up. It is our student showcase. So the students are presenting a group presentation together about what they've accomplished as far as their job sites and their just experiences being on campus. And then they'll also be doing little brief presentations on the courses that they took and what they got out of them. Some students actually had a big final project, so we've kind of pared that down to make it fit within our time for our projects, so everyone has an opportunity. But please come if you're able to, and if anyone would like the flyer, I can share that with you if you need it.
We can share it with the board.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is recognition of visitors on an agenda item. If you'd like to address the board on an agenda item, please come up to the microphone and state your name. No one? Okay. Next item is finance action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following finance action items 1 through 2.
So,
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Support personnel action, whoops, yeah. Support personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following support staff action items 1 through 4.
so moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Professional personnel action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following professional personnel action item 1.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? That passes. Other action items. It is recommended that the Board of Education approve the following action items 1 through 3.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes. Next, we will recognize visitors on non-agenda items. Nope.
Hi. Hello, my name is Hope Perlman, and I am a parent in the district. I watched the video of last week's board meeting and wanted to respond to Jody's report on the district scheduling committee and address Meredith Moriarty's question about the committee. I'm reading this rather than speaking extemporaneously because the past times I have addressed the board, I felt a bit like Jell-O wobbling on the edge of a diving board. I don't know why. I speak publicly quite often. I'm a parent on the committee, and I thought it would be useful for the board to hear my perspective on the meetings. I attended each of the district's scheduling committee meetings, as well as the meeting with Guilderland, Niskayuna, and East Greenbush. And while the Bethlehem administration's position has been rather passive, leaning towards the status quo, I felt we were all beginning to see there is much more to be done. Our first meeting consisted mostly of compiling a list of challenges to overcome if the district were to change start times. Our meeting with Guilderland et al. Left me with the impression, which has been borne out according to contacts with these districts, that these other districts are seriously and rigorously approaching this change. Guilderland has established several committees and offered to share work and information, so we are not reinventing the wheel. Their board is on board. Their athletics director is on board. Following that meeting, at our last district meeting, the first agenda item was to discuss setting up similar committees in Bethlehem. We never got to that discussion, as another parent raised the question on my mind, are we committed to this change? Because, she rightly pointed out, if we are not committed, then spending multiple people hours on logistics is a waste of valuable time. What followed was mostly a reiteration of the hurdles of athletics and BOCES schedules, the transportation costs, at this point mostly theoretical, since any research is several years old and was not about changing start times, and a restatement that our district's metrics on achievement, graduation, and absenteeism are pretty darn good, so we don't have a problem. Well, if I may, for a moment, look at this issue from a different angle. This issue of whether we have a problem that warrants changing start times and upsetting the transportation apple cart, I mean. You see, I also serve, or served, as it may have come to an end now, on the Strategic Planning Committee. And one of the prime topics of discussion at several meetings, as well as at a community forum, was the administration's deep concern about the mental health of our students. This concern was reflected in the adoption of the core value of wellness for the strategic plan. In fact, that was one of the reasons for establishing the scheduling committee. Furthermore, if I am not mistaken, just this year, we rearranged the high school counseling center so that there is now a counselor dedicated to handling the mental and emotional needs of our students. I had reason to speak to her not long ago when I crossed paths with a suicidal student. So, while metrics tell part of the story, they do not tell the whole. That student, by the way, would not lower the metrics mentioned earlier, as that student has high grades, participates in sports, and is on track to attend college. That is why one of the strategic plan's proposed core values is wellness. Some aspects of education are hard to reduce to numbers. If I may keep your attention for another moment, I would like to add my observation about these district scheduling committee meetings. I found myself talking a lot, much more than I wanted to hear. I did not hear much from the other members, except from those who lobbed objections based on logistics. We did not get to the heart of dealing with those logistics. I did not hear the science and medical recommendations discussed by anyone in depth. I did not hear from any of the district's counselors or nurses. At our last meeting, the parent who asked that excellent question, are we committed to this change, came out against changing start times. She said kids need to learn to suck it up, I am paraphrasing, because they have to get up and go to work one day. Well, you all know I disagree with that statement because you know I am for changing start times. I must mention one fact about this parent, which I hope did not slip by the other committee members at that meeting. This fact, that this parent, who was against changing start times, went on to say that her own child has an accommodation in place allowing her to arrive at school late. She arrives at school late and takes the consequence that Principal Domel went on to describe of missing out on one of the academic or special classes available to students who arrive on time. Her daughter arrives at school late because she gets lots of headaches and has trouble waking up in the mornings. I am a parent. I am also a teacher. My master's is in elementary education, and I have taught at the elementary, middle, and now college levels. I have zero hope of helping my own children through my efforts to get the district to adopt what is widely recognized by the American Medical Association, the Centers for Disease Control, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Sleep Medicine, and many others as a healthy start time of 8:30 or later. My youngest will graduate in 2020. Nevertheless, I find myself compelled to try. Why? Because as an educator, I feel it's important to do what is best for children. It's a hard thing to do, but so often the right thing is hard. When the outcome is to better the development of our children into healthy adults, the payoff is worth it all. Thank you for your ears. I will submit a copy of this to the board.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Future meetings and events. Our next board meeting will be on Wednesday, December 19th at 7 p.m. at Glenmont Elementary School with a 6 o'clock anticipated executive session. After the holiday break, our next meeting will be Wednesday, January 2nd at Eagle Elementary, again at 7 o'clock with a 6 o'clock executive session. And then on Wednesday, January 16th at Slingerlands Elementary, 7 o'clock board meeting, 6 o'clock executive session. There's no reason for the board to adjourn to executive session, so can I have a motion to close the meeting?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
PIG students, come up and sign out.